and therefore I started to read more around marketing and business, and then did courses. I probably must have done nothing less than 20 different courses. Went to Lagos Business School, different training and development in that, both local and internationally, in making sure that I was ready, even in that journey as well. But in terms of the practical steps, from microbiology, I then went into selling, but this time selling chemical. Again, chemical is a science, right? And your knowledge of microbiology and chemistry and biology make you a better salesman when it comes to chemical products. But that was just almost like the bridge between moving from the science into sales, and of course from sales into advertising, which is very close. Selling and marketing is not the same thing, but very relatable. And so that's the migration into the marketing world.
Beautiful. I mean, it was after you made that change in the priority that you started, with opportunities with Coca-Cola.
Yes.
Those are good old days.
Yeah, I think that is probably the career defining moment for me in real time. Keeping it real would be my move to Coca-Cola. It was life changing. You work on a brand like that in an international environment. I think there's nothing that can teach you marketing better than being in a truly marketing company.
Yeah. And they seem to still have that today.
Oh, absolutely. It will have, even after 200 close to 200 years. But yeah.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is the case? Is it because of their standard operating procedures, or what essentially do you think Coca-Cola has that has kept them, at the forefront of doing great marketing stuff over the years?
I think it's more about the DNA. Marketing is the DNA of the brand. I don't know how else to. It's in the DNA is in the
like the brand essence.
It's the brand essence. It's so in the way, again, when you look at the history, to your point around history and how the product was formulated, from a pharmaceutical lab and environment to a product that was then available to inspire soldiers in the war front as a refreshment, and so it sometimes is beyond just it's beyond the product. It is beyond the product. It's about what the brand stands for, which is beyond just refreshment. It's about inspirations. It's about building bonds. It's about building relationship, happiness. It's about love.
Yes.
Right. And those are values that are enduring. And no matter what the world, this will always be desirable by individuals, by families, and relations across the world. These are the things that build the bonds that make us human. And I think that's what the brand has found. And this is why I believe that it will always be there. Right, and the ability to also reinvent.
Correct.
To reinvent, even though the brand is as useful today as it was youthful 160 years ago.
Correct.
Correct. How do you stay youthful? And what I mean is you're therefore relevant to everyday generation.
Yeah.
Right, on a continuous basis. I think it's a marketing case study which will always be important in building brand, and it's important in understanding that brand building, brand growth is beyond transactional, which is why even when you think about the digital space, sometimes you have to think about the consumer. It's not just about you doing great marketing or sales or meeting your sales volume. Which is why when they say you can't do this on digital, for example, because the claim does not, because the long-term health of your brand is also about how it meets the people
Fail.
right? Exactly. So the people that the consumers need to be at the center
Absolutely.
of your brand and the things that you do as a brand on an ongoing basis. And I think that's one thing the company has done very, very well across markets, across decades, across generations. So when you come in from whatever the level is, and that is built into you and sticks with you, there's always something common amongst even almost every Coca-Cola person I meet. It's difficult to drink any other brand.
Yeah.
When you stop working there, because it just becomes part of you. And the essence and the way the brand building, the discipline of building a brand depth also stays with you, even when you work on another brand as well, because it's more around people, it's more about long-term sustainability and brand love.
Sweet. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, they refer to them as Coke boys, yeah?
Oh yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that's really beautiful, and I'm excited to hear that sort of helped when you're trying to pivot into this space, and I think you went on from there to work with Diageo, which is also one reputable brand as well. But the question therefore is, at what point did you realize that owning an agency is the way to go? And could you tell us what the story around that phase was?
Okay.
And why did you decide to create an agency?
Okay, thank you. Very interesting. First of all, the first opportunity that so the first time I worked, when I left my science background and coming into sales, I worked with Telerams.
Oh, nice.
And Telerams is in multiple countries also. Is a huge retail merchandising company in Asia and also in Africa now. And of course, what they do is mostly a retail or distribution for different brands. So that brought me into brand marketing and sales, like I said earlier. But after that, then I worked in a company called Video. Video is like an agency, but different in many ways. But that was my exposure to agency business. It's really about understanding that you are a partner to a bigger project, right? So there are multinational companies or companies local who have big marketing or business ambitions that they're trying to achieve, and they need strategic partners that can help them in meeting those goals. So it's important to understand that your role is as a partner and to help in delivering a bigger project, a bigger idea. And so if you have that understanding, then it will make you understand with clarity your responsibility, because you must see yourself as an extension of the clients and the businesses and the brands that you work with. Which is why if you work on a brand X, for example, you must know as much or better than the brand manager for brand X as the agency.
Correct.
That's how I was trained in my early days in video. It's about understanding the brand, it's understanding the product and seeing yourself almost like the brand manager. In fact, interestingly, in those early days, when a company recruits a brand manager, they send you to the agency to learn.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know how much still happens these days, but that was my experience, my early days. They kind of send a new recruit today to their agency. When they respect you as an agency and they're very professional, you do your work well, they will send their brand team to you. It might be for sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes longer.
Wow.
And there are times when there are gaps in the client's office and the first place they look for resources, the agency person to come in and sit through. Sometimes you work in the brand team, right? So that's a level of trust and relationship and knowledge and respect that agencies had. So that was my background. And then, so when I, considering that background and the way I value the client's agency relationship as being equal and partnership rather than a servant's master, therefore doesn't matter which side of the table you sit, right? And I have had the privilege of working with really great clients. I'll give you the days of, I've had the privilege of working with British American Tobacco, working as an agency. And the marketing directors were sometimes even younger than our managing directors in those days. I remember they had marketing directors in the early 30s in British American Tobacco in those days, and companies like that in that era. And the respect they give the agency, the training they give the agency is as good as they give their own staff. They invite you to workshop and seminars. You fly business class for every 6-hour flight at the client expense. You sit in same meetings. You're treated as a real partner. And therefore, even you will put yourself under demand to understand the brand. What is this brand? You're learning retail market, retail audits, market share, volume, sales, equity numbers. Every day you wake up, you're thinking, and they are sharing information with you on a weekly basis as they're getting. First, they subscribe to data, and they share data with the agency. So you're as good. You know what is going on, the challenges they face. Even when you go into a strategy session, you're picking market information that even they sometimes haven't seen. We once worked on a brand, and we realized from data that the principal purchaser for that brand that forever has been positioned as a female brand was actually male in the north. In the north. So again, looking at Nigeria is not a one market.
Yeah.
We are one country, but sometimes the approach to marketing has to be different.
Absolutely.
And you might sit in Nigeria as a brand manager and think you understand Nigeria. My marketing director in those days would tell you have to go to every market. You travel, of course. You travel by road, by flight. Every twice in a year I go around Nigeria. Every twice in a year by road. If we go by road to Benin, by road to Edo, to Asaba, all the way to Port Harcourt, right? Through Onitsha, all the way. You're stopping in the market, you're looking at your visiting channel, your visiting trade, you're talking to customers, and then from there you fly to Abuja, and then you start the road journey again to Kano. That's how you learn marketing. That's how you understand your consumer, not just sitting in your cool office in Lagos. So that's how we were brought up, and that's how we work in client. That's what we work as partners to the brands that we work on. So the deep knowledge. Therefore, when I'm a brand manager, when I work on the client side, right, I see my partners as equal and as partner. And today, I want to be able to see my clients as partner and as equal. And that's how that relationship needs to. But what ends that is knowledge of the brand, knowledge of the segment, knowledge of the categories, knowledge of the job that you've been asked to do. And so that the client can respect you. Unfortunately, in Nigeria today, in the market today, it's not as great as it used to be. We're having some situations, some agencies complain that it's almost like working with the Lord. So there's a lot a master servant relationship. Reforms in our industry many times were driven in those days by marketing directors.
Wow.
The migration into data, in the media segment, for example, scientific planning and investment in data and technology for planning were advocated, were led. In fact, the companies sometimes were paid in advance money to allow them to invest in data. And clients in those days will pay for you as an agency to acquire the data because they understand even your balance sheet. I remember in those days, let me mention her name, Bev, Roberto in the EPAC director, will look at the numbers and be asking, how is the agency? They want to see the details of your costing because nothing is hidden. And they want to be sure that agencies also running a profitable business so that you can also pay the attention and investment. You can keep your right talent.
Yeah.
Because when you have this business, then you can keep your talent. They don't need to travel. They don't need to run away. Because they're also well paid and well taken care of. They're also getting the training. So there's need to understand that agency is a partner and support the agency to develop its people to run a profitable business, right? So that we are looking at each other's, we've got each other, we have to have each other's back to run a real strong partnership. Beautiful clients and beautiful.
So that experience, working with those brands, the ways of working, then sort of motivated you to own the agency.
To own the agency, yes. Also because owning an agency there also sometimes offers you multiple experiences on different segments and different sectors, right? Because sometimes certain segments come under unique challenges. Maybe there's a change in law or there's a policy change that's stifling a particular segment, and therefore the client might be struggling at a particular period. Sometimes working in an agency gives you that opportunity to balance, to learn, to understand the economy on a larger scale, because you can then see, you hear about an increase in the import tariff, but there are companies where that alone can make or mar them.
True.
But if you're not in that anything importation of foreign or raw material, you may not know what's going on. So I just love that opportunity that it gives, and so even in my 10 years on the client side, I always knew I was going to come back to the agency side. And when I was leaving my last one, I was offered another role in Kenya, but I knew it was time for me to. Again, all my learning and my network and mentors then were about, look, running your own business brings you a different kind of fulfillment as well, right? So again, I was then therefore in the mood to actually see how do I put to test my learning as a businessman and an entrepreneur beyond just being a specialist, right, in a media or marketing segment. So this for me. But let me also mention that even beyond advertising, we also have done other investment or stakes in tourism, in bakery, in food processing, and some other business. So I think for me, it's really around the opportunity to wear the cap of an entrepreneur and a businessman at large. I think that's where the fulfillment today comes from.
That's beautiful, because that's driving real impact, within the economy, diversifying. And I think that's sweet. But I want to dial back a little. I'm so sorry about the loss of your mom. I think a few years ago.
Thank you.
I read that she was quite prominent, within the region at the time. Please accept my condolences.
Thank you very much.
What was growing up like for you, and how did growing up, sort of framed, or influenced the man that you are today?
Yeah. Thank you for memories about my mom. Is always very fun. She was very hardworking woman, very very loving as well, and she was very active also in the political space as well. Her background was education. I was a teacher for many years, and then of course went into politics and had a big voice for women.
She was a woman leader.
She was a woman leader, and then she also was the chairperson for the Ekiti State Electoral Commission as well. So again, I think the discipline of being a teacher was very present in my home, and of course, keeping your eyes in your book on what is important. I was how we were trained, growing up, there's good time to play, and there's time to also study and do your homework and do your, the whole values in my home doesn't ever go away, So growing up was very balanced. It's really about, focusing on your books and also playing within reasonable limits as well. It was challenging because we didn't grow up with both of our parents, and yes, so my mom did the most of the work, but of course we pay occasional visits to our dad. But of course, learning from both of them. Growing up from my dad was really around your name, and the name and how important your name is. It is. I come from a family in Ilepeju Ekiti where it's called the Heaven is Home, and it can be interpreted in my local language as well. So the destination is heaven. Right, and this name, this phrase, Orunile House, Heaven is Home, it's been passed down from generation to generation. Orunile, Heaven is Home, and the way we're described is that, and so it means that, look, whatever you're doing or achieving now is just temporary. There's a bigger final destination. So what my dad would always say to me is, things that are always connected to that. Do not eat with all your 10 fingers. No matter what you do, there's no amount of money that can buy your name, but that is what spoiling your name for. So for my dad, it's really around that. For my mom, is much more practical about, how do you, everyday education, relationships, developing yourself to be a better person, and then she always believed also in running your own business. She always say that, look, there's just how far you can go in when you work, that you should, your ultimate destination. And that was also very well helped in my own, I'm a Christian, and in where I used to worship, that was also very, very key for our pastor in those days. It was really around, developing yourself, and building your leadership potential and running your own business. And so I started reading a lot of books, in that area. So I always known, even though I was very comfortable on the client, and I always also believe everywhere I worked that I needed to, first of all, the way I do my job when I work in a place is like I'm running my own business. So you need to have the business mind, an entrepreneurial mind, even when you're in employment, even when you're working for people. Because, like my mom always said to me that you're working for yourself anyhow. Even when you're in employment, you're working for yourself. Because the things you learn, the relationship you build, the connections you make, nobody's going to take that away from you. Those are the things that you will need later on. So those are very, very important. I think that shaped my growing up to a larger extent. So
sounds like you were really well grounded growing up. Obviously looking at the practical side from your mom, and also the proverbs.
Yeah,
the real life realities from
it's always a proverb in my parents' mouth. Yeah. Yes,
that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
In the days when you don't have social media and people you follow, right? Today, there are a lot of people I'm hoping when you follow the right people, it's because they're learning in everyday things that you're reading or getting, and information they're sharing. In those early days, it's also about the community around you, which is also about your parents or uncle or a family friend, and the words they speak to you, to raise you, to challenge you, to inspire you. Those were our social media at the time. Content creators in those days, where you begin to shape and form and know who to follow and who not to follow in your journey to your destination.
Sweet. It's beautiful. In getting to where you are now, what principles, or what values, or ethics did you say were your guiding mantra
Yeah.
Right from, the early days and even now.
Yes. Again, I don't buy the values that were passed on to me. I believe are timeless. I believe the digital world can only make it better and will not take it away. And those are the ones that I also like to pass to my children as well. So they are timeless values, but they are fundamentals of human life. One is I do believe in godliness. There's everything you're doing must be done to a large extent for the good and not for anything else. The good sometimes these days that is questionable. People seem like debating what is right and not right. And sometimes you wonder, what is changing about this world? Good should always be good, right? And then people are bringing different dimensions as to what really is right or wrong. And if I give an example, it might be controversial.
Yeah.
But it's, for me, those are principles that should be timeless. Almost like whether you're a man or a woman, it shouldn't be in between. Whether you're born a man and then want to now become a woman. So there are certain values and principles which I do believe should be timeless. Using that as an example.
Yeah.
But of course, there's the everyday one of, it must be about the general good of all. Right, general good of all, whatever you're doing. Are you thinking about the next man? Right, are you thinking about how your decisions is going to affect the other person, whether your neighbor? Right, and that needs to be part of your everyday business decision. Where your third party, your agents, your staff, your supplier, your vendor, your driver. Again, the values of old. There's dignity in labor. So your driver, your gate man, your receptionist are as important as your everybody else. And also respecting that without those guys, right? That mean
True.
You lose something.
True.
Because there's something there. Yeah. I think there's a value that they bring to you. If you don't want to, ourselves, for example, go to London, see how much it will cost you, or go to abroad and see how much having a driver. If you don't have, which most people won't, except you're at the really top end, right? You will then when you come back, you should respect them more when you see the value they bring. Because sometimes we just don't value them.
Sure.
So it's about those little things and the fact that they are very, very important in creating a better country. There are areas which I still feel that I want to see big changes.
Okay.
Right. I'm really around. I remember there were times when things were tough growing up. And we used to sit down and listen to a radio show, a particular radio show, and the kid would sit to my mom, just listen. When the EPAC takes light in those days, and you just listen to radio, and then there's a time to just share and laugh and tell stories. Okay. And sometimes when I think about it and I still see darkness and I still see those things, I'm still wondering, like, this thing hasn't changed even 40 years plus, after. Where is this change going to happen? So, and I'm always still thinking, how can one still be part of this change rather than talking about it, criticizing it, right? Let me tell you one thing. Every time I see a very good road, like when I drove on Third Milan Bridge, and I see the way it's being lit, and the road is being well done, and the fact that there's also just basic line dividing the lane, which ideally should be fundamental and basic on our road. But because it is not being done, and when you now see it, it's like, wow. Whereas it should be normal, right?
True.
And then you then wonder, why is it that we're just seeing that after so many years, right? And So you still keep thinking, like, what can we do to transform? But the point I'm trying to make on that is that somebody is making sure that happened. I'm sitting down complaining about where it is not happening. Why can't I be part of the person who is making that decision to make that happen? So how are we influencing a bigger community and our country in a much bigger way that can translate, that is transformational, rather than, I think that for me will be like,
great change you really want to see.
Yes.
Which will lead me to this next question. What's your vision, for Africa as a continent?
I think, I have been lucky to travel around Africa in my previous role, and so I'll say I've seen a big part. I've had during the FIFA World Cup trophy tour, and my knowledge of my role in Coca-Cola some time ago. I've seen a lot of French West Africa, Southern Africa, and Northern Africa. I feel that there's a lot that we can do in Africa to create a better continent. I also believe that Africa is the next destination for global transformation. But I think that from a leadership standpoint, there's a lot that we are not doing. There's a lot that there are situations where we put ourselves that we shouldn't be anything near. Like if you take Nigeria as an example, right? 10, 15 years ago, when you go into South Africa, you can as well be anywhere in Europe because, you don't even think about electricity. Blinking. But they are buying generators, they're doing load shedding. So what has changed? Technology is better, knowledge is better, but what has changed? The answer is obvious, right? What has changed? Meaning that we are the people, right? And South Africa is an ideal example of what Africa can achieve. Because when you look at the way, the level of development, in major cities, technology and how that is being used, even the knowledge and specialization in different areas, I also value the work ethics, the work ethics, the work value, the system. And I think that can be replicated across, despite the challenges that they had leading to, they've still been able to grow. For me, it just shows the potential of Africa. And there are countries where I've also gone to, and I see where security is not even it's not an issue, and there's just respect for the next person. There's respect for the person. There's respect for their time. Getting the queue normally without anybody telling you, respecting the next person, courtesy, an everyday courtesy, right? So I think Africa, when you look at it from the standpoint of the positives in places like South Africa and in other places like, even Central Africa where they don't have the things that we have. And when you look at the progress that Northern Africa has made relative to Sub-Saharan Africa, for example, and we see the difference, it shows you that as a continent, there's a lot that we can do if we get leadership right. So I think leadership is the biggest challenge that we have. As a country, we've been blessed in resources. If you look at Nigeria alone, we have no business being a poor country. When you look at the volume of crude and other minerals that we have and for how long we've had them, we shouldn't be anywhere close to what we were in terms of poverty. In terms of poverty, so there's a huge. And you also look at the disparity between the very rich and the poor, right? There are individuals who are richer than states, who are rich. Maybe they are richer than some small countries as well in the same economy. And then you then see the extreme of poverty. Then we need to change that. I look at the economy in a place like, civilized world or developed countries. The tax and the tax contributions and contribution of the of the rich, to a large extent, is what is driving and influencing the growth and providing for the other side.
True.
And we need to, this economy needs to, so people need, the upper end needs to be, the people who are benefiting and milking this country need to deliver much more than they are right now, so that the wealth, right, the gap is closed. We need to create a new middle class, a thriving middle class. We need to create a thriving middle class and reduce and get out as many people from the poverty. So it is sad when you hear about the way money, cash is being allocated and still being stolen, and all of that is going on in that area. Is really a lot of frustration. And then it questions whether that's the best way to make that investment. Because when you trust people with, it's just as simple as the parable of, the saying around teaching people to fish versus giving them the fish. So which is where should the priority should be? How should that be distributed? So that we can create a much more thriving, small scale and small and medium-sized businesses and industry that can cause the bigger transformation that we need. So the vision for Africa is just really an African where there are more opportunities, where the poverty and the lack and the suffering, right, is eroded significantly. And for me, that's what will bring the bigger transformation that we want to see. It's about caring for the little and the weak and the poor and and those at the lower end of the ladder. For me, that is where that focus for transformation for Africa is going to come from. So creating products, creating services, creating policies that are centered around transformation that takes away poverty, right? For me, is where the transformation of Africa can come. Everything else will lay on top of that.
Beautiful. As we draw this conversation to a close, what would be your advice for that poor boy? Not poor boy. What would be your advice for that young boy, that young girl? That's not so clear on when the next meal will come from. But that person is heavily driven. Person wants to aspire to be, own a business tomorrow. Wants to be the president of maybe EPAC, even president of Nigeria. But it's not so clear. Yeah, she's also clear where the next meal will come from. What would be your advice to that person?
So the truth is that there's nothing wrong in not being clear on where your next meal is going to come from. This is what I mean. So for example, let me just backtrack. Very early in my youth, in my very early days, there were times when I wasn't even sure where the meal was going to come from, particularly in uni days. So the first priority is paying your school fees. Then the next priority is everything else. Where the meal will come from, what you wear will come, what is it that you will come from. But first, pay school fees. So I think for that person, my advice will be that you first of all need to believe that what the situation you are, right, will change or can change. I think that belief is very important because it is happened many times and to many people. So having that mindset that you are not created to be, you may have been born in that situation, but you are not created to be in that. So your destination, that's your current location.
Yeah.
But it is not your destination. It is not. So having that mindset is very important to know that, yes, I may not know where the meal is come from, but I know I'm not going to die. I will not starve to death. Right, so whatever you need to then therefore do that is legal and legit to get you beyond that day and that situation to the next is what you just need to do. But keeping your eyes on the next after that and understanding that, yes, I may not have it, but what then do I need to do? Okay, if I need to just buy and sell tomatoes or onion to make sure that the meal for that, even for tomorrow, I can get that. So what is there? Collect from A, give to B, add a little margin, keep the rest in your pocket. Tomorrow, if A doesn't want it, find C and D, right? If you don't have the money to buy it, who is that person who is selling it that wants to push it out quickly? You see some people, they are selling 20 tubers of yam, they stack it, right? Okay, you don't have a farm, you don't have yam, but you're alive. Go and collect 3 yams from that man. Walk away far from him and lay that same yam down. What are you? You're already a trader. When somebody comes there, he doesn't know whether you are the owner of the yam or not. Put your own little margin on it, plus plenty of value, service. As the man is coming, you are greeting him 10 times. If he's, whatever it is that will make him think about you and say, I like this boy's attitude, right? And you're offering that, sir, I will help you clean it.
Yeah.
I will help you wash it. I will help you carry it to your car. And that's all. So once you do, so the point is, don't put yourself in a position where you will completely harmless and say there's nothing you can do in your situation. There has to be. Once you have life, there's certainly what you can do. So it's about now looking at that to say, how do I then create the meal for today and for the tomorrow, and not being satisfied with your situation. So where you are, you have to keep thinking of the next. And as you keep doing that, the opportunities, there's no way it will keep opening to you. So long as you're hungry, right? Hungry to serious change. I don't mean physical hunger now. To see that change and taking steps that will bring the change, that will make the change happen. There's no way. God is not impartial, right? And life would always, no matter how tough life is, there will be times when Mother Earth and life will, and God will look upon you, and the opportunities will come. It might be far and in between, but it will certainly come, and then you just keep seeing how do you open it up to the next one, and you keep going until you get to that place.
Beautiful. And this will be the final question before I let you go. If you think back now, at your journey, was there any time, you felt like, I just need to quit, I just need to rest, I just need to, I can't do this anymore? Like you felt like throwing the trowel, and what kept you going? What was that source of motivation for you?
Yeah, so to be completely honest, I haven't been in any situation where I think I can't give, because the truth is, the way I was brought up, where I had connected the people around me, you cannot be in that position where you feel. When I'm in a tough position, I always think that I am not thinking hard enough, or I'm not consulting hard enough, because I believe for every challenge, there's a solution somewhere. And there's someone or something, either an information you need to have or someone you need to know that can give you the solution. It might just be, imagine you need 10 million naira and you don't have it in your account. There has to be a way in which that money can come. Question is, have you thought deep enough about how that money can come? Whether it's from borrowing it, or whether it's from, so borrowing it from since you don't have it, you have to borrow it. Or whether it's from delaying what you want to use the money for. So if you need 10 million to buy something and you don't have the cash, what says you can't get that thing without the money? Have you thought about taking that thing first and creating the money? So I just feel like there can be solution. So let's say, for example, in America and developed countries, they have a credit card system, right? Why was the credit card system created? With a credit card, you can buy things you don't have the money in your account for. It's as simple as that. So a big problem in Nigeria sometimes is just in our mind. When you think about it from that perspective, what the credit card is what? It's just a reputation put in a card, or a credibility put in the card. It's the same reason why somebody will give you the yam. For, okay, if they know you, you are respectful, you are hardworking, you are honest. So it gives you. So do the things that will give you that access to that need that you need. You need a car. There are people who have too many cars that they cannot even drive. Are you in the right cycle, in the right environment? Have you shown yourself to be somebody that someone can look at and say, I give you this car to be using because it's an extra load in my car? Yeah. I know people who have donated cars I know people who have given out cars. Cars that are market, not dead cars. I know few people who have been close to few people who have given out cars in this country. There are people who, either God puts it in their mind, or you've done some things, or you're in a network, or you are doing something that make them want to do that. I know a guy that was paid his school fees in the US was paid for by a member of his group, of his church group. Only not because he's a member of his church group, but because he was just diligent. What gave him that opportunity is his diligence and commitment. And the person believed that if I do this to this guy, it would transform him. And let this be the only thing. There's somebody that today I'm looking for how I can help. Let me tell you, he's my barber. And so every time when I pay him and, just had a token, I just always think this guy deserves much more than this, right? Because the way he talks, the way he lives, the insecurity where he lives, and the fact that I know he's hardworking. This is just what he can do for now in terms of the skill, his background was I just feel, and so when I travel and I pay for barbing, and every time I change, I say, I wish this guy was in this country. I could be earning this. There's so much this guy can do with his life. And I keep thinking, where will I be able to help this guy, right? If he has to relocate. And what also triggers that is, I was reading about this Nollywood guy on Instagram. And he said he's a music artist, and he said that he pays over $1,000 for his haircut. And that, of course, that's what his friends and colleagues and people in his network that barb with the guy, they all pay him well over $1,000. And he was saying that he met this guy, he was in a tough situation and he needed to cut his hair at a point. He went to this salon and they barbed him, and he looked very good and was so impressed. He said, wow. And they asked him for the bill. Was about $100 for the haircut in that place somewhere in the US, probably in LA. And he said to him, how are you charging just this? He said, well, this is what they pay the guys who work in. He said, well, are you ready to relocate, to another neighborhood? And anyway, he invited him, and then he started barbing for his friends, and that just transformed. So there are times when, after a while, he invested in a mobile truck, which you could buy with a little deposit and then credit. And what he does is he drives his truck with 2 seats for barbing to this guy's street, and he goes from family to family. And they just, there's some families where they don't even ask you for any, how much can they cut? Everybody about how much you charge, they pay. Right? So it just cuts. He might not even spend more than 10 minutes on a little boy's hair. And and does those things. Anyway, cut a long story short, this guy, he's now started a barbing brand. He has a name that people are now even, you buy the franchise to use, a barbing franchise.
So, boss, I want to say thank you so much for your time. I know you're a man with very busy and tight schedule. It's so great to hear from you, to learn from your story, and your journey so far. It's been really inspiring. Thank you so
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I hope that this somebody hears this and can help to transform or change. I think, again, for quiet guys like us who typically don't, again, this is an opportunity to share. So I actually consider it a privilege to have shared some of these stories, and I really want to thank you as well for having me.
Thank you so much.